Hearty shalom to you, Jeffrey Seif here. I'm here, you're there, and the Bible's right in front of us, between us. So here we go. I'm interested in Hebrews chapter 6. Tough text, by the way, in verses 1 through 8. And I explored that previously. I don't want to go back and spend a lot of time on it. He had noted that best to keep looking forward and not to look backward. Let's just leave it at that. And I think that said, that the better part of life should be lived looking in the windshield, not in the rearview mirror to see where you came from. That's how you get into accidents. The road's hard enough as it is. Easy to slip off the road, bad weather, winding turns, and life has a little bit of both of those. And best to have it all looking forward. And that's after tendering a warning associated with going back, he, in verse 9 says, but even all that said, I have a better feeling about you. I don't think it necessarily applies what I just said. He says, I'm convinced of better things concerning you. That is, he had spoken about turning away and the hazards associated with previously. But he says, but with you, I'm confident that you'll carry on. And all that said, let me say that I think that's one of the characteristics of faithful people. Faithful doesn't mean just going to church every time the doors open up. Faithful means to be full of faith. It's to have a reasonably confident disposition. The word confident, confides in Latin, means with faith. It's to have that optimism. And I think that's one of the characteristics of people of faith. People of faith, it's not people of doctrine and religious convictions. Though certainly those of us that have faith in the Lord, and we have a book here that's pretty thick, and the idea is to look at all this literature and make sense of it and develop a theological habitus that is a home where we live with our understandings of what we think we're seeing and its implications for life now and life to come. There's going to be some variance on how we sort all that out. But faith has less to do with the theology of how you understand literature as much as what prompts the impulse to be interested in theology in the first place. Someone's had some touch from heaven with the net result now that they are energized to seek the things of the kingdom. And it's faith, it's that touch, it's that positivity, it's that go, it's that energizer, it's that battery that he sees alive and at work in his hearers here. And he goes on to say in verse 10, God's not so, and by the way, this is worth remembering in my opinion. He says, God is not so unjust as to forget your work and the love that you had showed for his name in having served and continuing to serve the Kedoshim, from the word Kadosh, holy, the holy ones, the saints. This author says, I know something's good in store for you, because God's not so unjust to overlook all the kindness that you've shown toward the brethren. A lot don't show kindness toward the brethren. In fact, evangelicalism in North America is so detached from any commitment to the brethren. People are more committed to this private quest, their personal relationship with Jesus. It's me. It's all individualized. And so people go from community to community, 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 community through life, and that's just the norm. People engage and disengage, engage, disengage, engage, disengage, and they'll do it 100 times and think nothing of it. That's modernity. And but if you're constantly disengaging, where's the love of the saints? A kind of commitment to community and betterment and the people therein. I think there's something to be said for blooming where you're planted and growing and loving. People often go to the bigger places where they think there's bigger opportunities to make a bigger difference, to make more money, to make more impact, and people forsake the small. A lot of the bigger churches are just built off of people abandoning smaller ones. They get a better program over here. I don't want to critique big churches just because I was never able to grow one. But I just think that wherever we are, the better among us seek opportunities to serve, and we stay there even when we're upended by circumstance that's less than hoped for. I see it all the time. You know, as a pastor, you're looking to build community, and someone gets upset at this and at that, and this person and that person, they blow up, and it's ubiquitous. It happens all the time. It doesn't not happen. And people disengage. There's just something lovely about staying in the game and weathering the storms. And this author says, because they do it, he says, God is not unjust to overlook the extensions of kindness that you've expended. He goes on in verse 11, but we long for each of you to show the same earnestness for the certainty of hope to the very end. That is, he and whoever he's with, we're hopeful that you're going to carry on in this good way to the end. And then he goes on to say, and not be sluggish, not to be weary in well-doing. He goes on that you may continue on this way to the end. In verse 12, so you will not be sluggish. And I see this all the time, a kind of sluggishness, a kind of sloth. You know, people move slow, or they don't move at all. You know, people are just kind of bogged down in the malaise, tangled up in their own cares and despairs. And it's the nature of things. It's the nature of things. You know, this is, I'm giving this talk in the holiday season. I drank a little more eggnog. I normally don't drink, but there's a lot of calories in that. And today, someone came into the office with some food, and I had a few extra pieces that I shouldn't have had. I better get out there tomorrow morning and run it off. You know, you got to keep pushing against. If you just let things go the way they naturally go, people just incline themselves into despair, into decay, into disorientation. There needs to be a commitment to press on, to be more energetic, and lest we become sluggish. He says, don't be sluggish, but imitators of those who through faith, who through trust and perseverance inherit the promise. You know, that there's a kind of tarrying, there's a kind of proactivity that he's exhorting here based on an understanding that it pays great dividends. You know, when you're in the middle of the struggle, all you feel is the pain. I'll lift weights in the morning oftentimes, and you get underneath those weights and, you know, you're not there for the comfort of it all. You're there for the strain, you know, no pain, no gain. You know, there's an old saying in military that, you know, pain is weakness leaving the body. You know, it's sometimes when you're going through it, it's not a lot of fun, but you can't just give up the ghost because it hurts. And people do it all the time, whether it's a congregational affiliation, whether it's an intimate partner. People give up the ghost when it hurts. They just kind of, you know, they just kind of disengage. Don't do that. He says don't do that, but carry on. Well, speaking about carrying on, by all means do it without me. Thank you for spending 8 minutes and 30 seconds. Let's do this again in a week. Ciao.